For 3 straight quarters, the floor was a graveyard. Every drive stalls at the free throw line. Every jump shot bounced off the back of the rim with a hollow, heavy thud. 0 points, 0 assists, 4 turnovers. The home crowd, which had filled the arena to the rafters, sat in uneasy silence. The opposing bench was grinning, exchanging high-fives, convinced that their game plan had finally cracked the code. They thought they had neutralized him. They believed they had taken his confidence, taken his rhythm, and taken the crowd completely out of the game. But as they walked off the floor at the end of the third period, they were about to make one fatal mistake. They forgot who was wearing that jersey. It all started with massive expectations. The afternoon was built around this single matchup. As he stepped onto the hardwood for warm-ups, thousands of fans stood up with their phones raised, trying to capture every movement. The atmosphere was electric, with everyone waiting for that instant spark that usually defined his games. But the opposing defense came out aggressive, completely unbothered by the crowd. They doubled him at the half-court line. They used physical bump coverage off the ball. They jammed every driving lane before he could even get his momentum going. His first attempt of the night was stripped cleanly on the drive, leading to an easy fast break on the other end. His second attempt was a rushed, off-balance fadeaway that barely grazed the front of the rim. By the time the third quarter rolled around, every single possession felt like an uphill battle. He was getting bumped off his spots, forced into difficult passes, and couldn't find a single clean look. The stat sheet was empty, and the stadium had grown noticeably quiet. The opposing coach looked completely relaxed on the sideline. The defense was practically dropping off him, daring him to shoot, confident that tonight simply wasn't his night. The crowd was getting restless. The home team was falling behind, and their biggest star couldn't provide the spark everyone was desperate for. The opposition felt completely in control. They were talking trash as they headed to the bench, convinced they had mapped out his entire skill set and solved him. While the opposing team celebrated their dominance during the late quarter timeout, he sat quietly on the edge of the bench. He wasn't kicking chairs. He wasn't yelling at his teammates or arguing with the referees. He had a towel over his shoulders, staring intently at the floor. He wasn't frustrated, he was calculating. He was replaying every single possession in his mind. He was watching the way the help defense rotated when he touched the ball, tracking the exact fraction of a second the primary rim protector committed to his jump, and analyzing the subtle gaps in their transition defense. Slowly, methodically, he was solving the puzzle. The fourth quarter arrived with the team trailing by 11 points. The building was thick with tension as he checked back into the game. Nobody knew if the final 10 minutes would bring a quiet loss or a miraculous comeback. The opposing defense gave him space at the top of the key, expecting another passive possession, assuming he would just look to pass. He caught the ball at the logo. He didn't hesitate for even a fraction of a second. He rose up and launched a pull-up jumper from 30 feet out. Swish! The net didn't even move. A sudden jolt of electricity surged through the arena as the crowd rose to its feet. That single shot unlocked everything. On the very next defensive possession, he anticipated a cross-court pass, jumped the lane, picked off the ball, and sprinted the length of the court. With 2 defenders closing in, he took off from the dotted line and slammed it down with 2 hands through heavy contact. The whistle blew. And one. The entire arena exploded into absolute chaos. In less than 90 seconds, the 11-point lead had evaporated down to 5. The opposing coach frantically called a timeout, calling out defensive shifts and screaming at his players to lock down. But it was far too late. The dam had broken, and the momentum had completely shifted. When play resumed, he looked like a completely different player. His eyes were locked in, his movement was sharp, and the hesitation that had plagued his game all night was entirely gone. Out of the timeout, he caught the ball in the midpost, faked a drive left, spun back right, and sank a contested fadeaway right over the extended hand of his defender. On the following possession, he drove hard into the paint, drew 3 defenders into the paint, and whipped a blind, behind the back pass to the corner for a go-ahead 3-pointer. The opposition was in total disarray. The same defense that had comfortably held him scoreless for 30 minutes was now completely powerless to stop him. He was scoring from the perimeter, finishing through contact at the rim, and setting up his teammates with pinpoint precision. With less than 30 seconds remaining on the game clock and the score tied, the entire building knew who was taking the final shot. The opposing team threw everything they had at him, sending a hard double team as soon as he crossed half-court. He didn't panic. He dribbled through the trap, drove hard to the left elbow, froze his primary defender with a subtle hesitation dribble, stepped back behind the three-point line, and let the ball fly just as the final buzzer sounded. The ball hung high in the air as the entire arena held its breath. High arc, perfect rotation, and right into the bottom of the net. Game over. The bench cleared immediately, swarming him at half-court while 30,000 fans screamed at the top of their lungs. The team that had spent 3 quarters looking defeated had just pulled off the ultimate comeback. This is what separates the elite from the rest of the pack. 3 terrible quarters don't define an entire performance. A cold start isn't a final verdict. One shot changes the confidence, another changes the scoreboard, and a third changes the entire narrative. You can quiet a superstar for 30 minutes, but as long as there is time left on the clock, the story is never over.